It's football signing day, and we got the GOAT. That's right, the best guy in the recruiting industry as it pertains to the Iowa Hawkeyes. Tom Kakert joins us as we break it down, the 2024 recruiting class today. Locked On Hawkeyes.
You are Locked On Hawkeyes, your daily podcast on the Iowa Hawkeyes. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Welcome in. I'm Trent Condon, and this is the Locked On Hawkeyes podcast. Thanks for making Locked On Hawkeyes your first listen every day. We're available wherever you find podcasts. You can also find us on YouTube. While you're there, hit that subscribe button. Helps us get in front of more Hawkeye fans. Today's episode is brought to you by FanDuel Sportsbook. Make every moment more. Right now, new customers get $150 in bonus bets with any winning $5 moneyline bet. That's $150 if your team wins. Visit FanDuel.com/lockedon to get started. Football signing day is here, and happy to be joined by the Dean of Recruiting Analysts here in the Iowa Hawkeye realm. He is Tom Kakert from HawkeyeReport.com, now part of On3 Media. Tom, well, we've been talking on the radio for, 2 decades now.
Yes.
I believe this is the first time that we've done something like this, right? With a little face-to-face. You've hung out with us in Chicago.
Yeah, this is the first time that our ugly mugs are together on something.
Yeah, I apologize to everybody on YouTube, but it is what it is. Well, Tom, obviously a day that is different, I think, for you. I talk to people here across our network on Locked On, you on 3. Iowa football recruiting is kind of different than anywhere else. The class has been locked up from August. This is something that's been going on, the last 4 or 5 years. Kind of take us in and how different it is when you talk to your colleagues, what you do with the Hawkeye beat compared to pretty much everybody else across the country.
Yeah, it's weird. I mean, last year there was some drama towards the end with Caden Proctor flipping to Alabama, but otherwise it was a drama-free class. And this year they were essentially done. They had a big recruiting weekend where they had 21 prospects on campus. They land 20 of them. The only guy that gets away is the Xavier Lucas kid who goes to Wisconsin. Otherwise, everybody else commits, and there's no drama. There's no wavering. Even with what happened with Brian Ferentz during the season, no wavering from anybody. So it's just it's been that way for a while, honestly, where they've just kind of figured out the guys that they want, and they've been able to lock them up, and they've been able to just keep them, and not a lot of wavering, not a lot of guys looking around. So that tells me that they're, I think sometimes they probably look at themselves in the mirror and go, did we get the right guys sometimes? Because there's no, wavering from any of these guys, or was it too easy sometimes to just get these guys? But you look at the offer list for most of these guys, and there's impressive offer lists out there from Midwest schools that are Power 5. So it's not like they're I go back to like 2016 when they were beating out, like everybody was joking, they're beating out MAC schools or whatever. They're beating out Power 5 schools. So I don't have any qualms with this class. Is 28th. We've got it right now in the country, and 8th in the Big Ten, and that includes the West Coast schools now. So are in our rankings. So it's out of 18, so upper half. So I think solid class. They hit a lot of needs.
Want to start offensively, and we'll get into the defense as well. Some of your favorite prospects. Sure. I know you break these guys down. I watch a 2-minute huddle video and make determinations on that. You did get a little bit deeper than I do. And of course, all the industry resources that you have. But pretty much every class, you start with the quarterback position, James Rezar. And our Locked On recruiting analyst, he's from Florida, seen a lot of James in his high school career. I guess the question still about him is accuracy. He's a tremendous athlete. He's got the speed that I know a lot of people on the message boards of Hawkeye Report have been clamoring for a long time. Yeah. He's definitely got the wheels, but I guess the one question, what's he going to be accuracy-wise at the next level?
Yeah, I think that's the big question is as a thrower more than a runner. But, like everybody's been clamoring for this dual threat guy. So here he is. They've got one. And The good news is he can probably take some time to develop. You're going to have Cade McNamara hopefully healthy. You have Deacon Hill, you've got Marco Lainez, so you've got some cushion between what James is going to have to do. So I think he'll have some time to develop. And the thing with quarterbacks today is if you don't like what you got, you can always go out and get a new one.
Yep.
That's what everybody does, because that really one of the toughest things to do right now in college football is have quarterback depth, quality depth, because if your backup quarterback is good, guess what? He's leaving. He's going to go find another opportunity because that's just the way it is.
It's the new reality, and you're exactly right. And that's kind of where we are. We see with Joe Labus now as he's in the portal getting some MAC level offers, and we saw Carson May a year ago depart after just a season there on campus. So it happens, and it happens quickly. Rezar, one more thing quickly on him. If it doesn't work, if the accuracy just doesn't get there, they don't see him being able to be, a collegiate level, Big Ten level quarterback. Does he have position flexibility? I know it's been bandied about. Do you see that at all? I know he's been a quarterback for a long time.
Yeah, I don't know that doesn't jump off the page at me. We're like a Marvin McNutt. You could have seen some position versatility there, but I just don't see it with him right now.
All right, let's get into the running backs next. Now, I talked about this on yesterday's podcast. Our everydayers, they know this. Very difficult for me to make a determination about Brevin Dahl because, well, I grew up with Shanlin and Adam, his parents. They're a couple of my best friends, and because of that, I've known Brevin since he was a baby. And, he was running around our tailgate, tossing a football around as a little kid, and now watching him at the high school level. So, outside perspective, your perspective on him, a guy that had a lot of nice offers, and I would kind of come in there late. I knew when it came, the likely commitment was going to follow very quickly afterwards. But your thoughts on Brevin Dahl?
Yeah, I am super excited about him. And in fact, in my signing day awards, I recognized him in that with the offensive group as one of the players to watch and the sleeper in the class, just because I think he got hurt this year. And I think he kind of fell off the radar for a lot of people. If he had had a regular senior season, he's putting up some eye-popping numbers, and everybody's talking about him. And I think he kind of fell off the radar a little bit. But the other thing that he's going to have is a challenge if everything holds together. And right now it looks like all three of the top running backs are coming back, and the two guys behind him are coming back. That's a crowded room. Yeah, that's a really crowded room. So. He's going to have time to develop. And I think that's probably a good thing. But, that's not the added pressure of not having to come in and play right away. But I think he would probably love to come in and play right away. And I think he's capable of doing that. But that's a crowded room now. It's going to be interesting how that shakes out, because I think eventually some guys are going to get antsy and want to look around.
Well, and with Brevin, a guy that caught the ball in the backfield a ton, Dad, Adam, 6'5". He was over in Iowa City, had during track season last year, had a little bit of a hip issue. And I made sure to mention to the Dolls, hey, make sure you ask if his growth plates are still open. Still open. So maybe he can grow another inch or two, get to be, we've been looking for that big 6'3" receiver, right? Maybe that eventually becomes Brevin Dahl.
It could be. He's got the speed. I mean, as we know, he's got track speed, big time track speed. So he's a kid that maybe, if he adds a couple inches, could totally see him being a receiver. And maybe that's something they can carve out early in his career before he becomes a running back, is maybe he's in that position. Maybe, Tim Dwight came in and he was going to be a running back and ended up being a wide receiver. Maybe that's not saying this kid's Tim Dwight. Don't want to put that on anybody, but it's happened.
All right. One more on the skill position, and very intrigued by Reese Vanderzee, a guy that it looked like it came down to Iowa and Iowa State for him. Nebraska was also involved, but been searching for that next big X receiver. Haven't been able to find it. Well, he's definitely got the size at 6'5". So he had a big basketball game, good athlete over there. What you've seen from Vanderzee, and is he a guy, if he comes in, the speed kind of translates right away? Could he be a guy we're talking about maybe seeing some reps right away?
He could. I think back to early in Scott Chandler's career, and Scott Chandler was 6'7", but he came in as a wide receiver and played right away, just because he had some size and he could do some things in the red zone that other guys couldn't do as a big target. So potentially, yeah. The thing I always thought of in his recruitment, I know there was a lot of rumors. Well, maybe he's leaning towards Iowa State or whatever. I'm like, he goes to Central Lyon High School. I mean, if you go to Central Lyon High School, you just sort of have to go to Iowa. It's just how it works, and that's how it turned out. Yeah, intriguing player, really intriguing player, because you don't see guys with that size at wide receiver from in-state kids very often.
Well, we were going to talk next about the inline guys offensively, Tom. Talking with Tom Kakert from Hawkeye Report. Inline players, both the offensive line, a big offensive line class, and the tight ends, a very talented group. We'll do that as we continue here. This is the Locked On Hawkeyes podcast. Today's episode of Locked On Hawkeyes is brought to you by the FanDuel Sportsbook. As the weather gets colder, the NFL offers stay hot on FanDuel. Right now, new customers get $150 in bonus bets with any winning $5 money line bet. That's $150 if your team wins. If you've been thinking about joining FanDuel, there's no better time to get in on the action. The app, it's super easy to use and a whole bunch of betting options for you. Of course, the point spreads, the over-unders. They got player props. You can do same game parlays, a whole bunch of things. My favorite thing at FanDuel, the deep menu in the futures market, and they got a whole lot more. Visit FanDuel.com/lockedon to kick off the NFL season. That's FanDuel.com/lockedon. FanDuel, official partner of the NFL. Trent Condon back with you here on the Locked On Hawkeyes podcast, joined today by Tom Kakert, HawkeyeReport.com, part of On3 Media. Busy day, Tom. Appreciate you carving out a few minutes for us today as we take a look at this recruiting class. A lot of great things going on, and I think maybe the story of this whole class as a whole is the amount of offensive linemen that they're bringing in. A couple of really talented guys with some big-time offers in state with Cody Fox, and then you also have, obviously, Nolan. A couple of guys with some big-time offers, top 200 type prospects in the country. So let's start there. The offensive line, those top two guys, and potential. We don't see it very often. Do you see any potential out of this group, guys seeing playing time early on the O-line?
Yeah, it's going to be hard just because but the thing I'm interested in too is that they've kind of stacked two really good classes in a row on the offensive line, and that's without Caden Proctor. But they've really kind of, I think, put together two classes that are going to be pretty good longer term with, Leighton Jones and Trevor Lauk and those guys last year. And then, Will Nolan. Cody Fox was a guy that he's the first commit in this class. In 2021, he committed, and his brother had been on the team. So, and he, from Robert Gowry's high school and John Gowry and all the Gowrys. So he was kind of, it was Iowa that was always going to be his place. He got a lot of attention early on, recruiting wise, was a 4-star kid for most of his tenure being ranked. And Will Nolan, 6'6", 275. Iowa really just kind of crushed it in the Chicago area, I thought, this year. It reminded me of, going all the way back to 2005 when they were getting, Dan Doring and all those guys, Dace Richardson, and kind of cleaning up in Chicago. And I don't know if any of these guys are at that level star-wise, but Will Nolan's certainly in that mix as a 4-star player. And you got Bodie and Josh as well that are coming in. They just seem like kind of typical Chicago area kids, a little tough, roughness to them, and like to play physical. So I think good gets.
Tight end position, two guys coming in. It's tight end. You're like, okay, well, if they find the field, they're probably going to play in the NFL. Now, we don't know, at least for this season, what it's going to be, depending on the decision from Luke Lachey and even Eric All, though it sounds like All may be leaning more towards leaving. Regardless of that, going to be tough. We saw the emergence of Addison Estrenga this year for a guy to get out there, at least a whole bunch on the field. But Gavin Hoffman, that dude is an absolute athlete. Talking to the Dow family when they were on their official visit back in that, June visit that everybody was on. That was the one they weren't sure about. They're like, yeah, you know what? He was a little bit, parents were kind of just taking it all in. They weren't real chatty compared to most of the other parents. Hoffman, they weren't sure. And then sure enough, a couple days later, he commits to the Hawkeyes.
Yeah, that was one of those. I remember he kind of gave a comment, and I think it was kind of privately that he said after I offered his response was about time, you know. So he had kind of been like, why aren't these guys offering me? As successful as Iowa is with tight end position. So and here's the interesting thing with Gavin Hoffman. He is going to enroll early. So he will be in January. So that's going to give him, he's 220. He could potentially be, 230, 235 by the time we get to August and get those much needed reps. And, say Eric Hall, almost certain gone, but say Luke Lachey's gone too. Boy, all of a sudden there's kind of an opening there for somebody to jump in there as that, third tight end. I would think he's primed he's my guy that I picked as most likely to play as a true freshman, just because he's coming in early. I don't really count the punter. Right. Because we know he's coming in to punt. And by the way, his videos are ridiculous. Restocking. I mean, there's just the multi 5-second hang time things. I mean, if Torrey Taylor's a legend, wait till we see this guy shooting him up to the moon, kicking him over the water tower or something. But Michael Burt's pretty talented too. He's another big kid, 6'5.5" and almost 230. I kind of thought he was one of the surprise guys too, because I thought maybe he might end up at Nebraska. He's from that area. He's from Omaha, and they got the excitement with the program coming and everything, but he was really sold on Iowa. So two good tight ends in this class for the Hawks.
Jump over to the defense. We're talking with Tom Kakert from HawkeyeReport.com, and let's jump into a defensive line that all four of these guys, I mean, you talk about upside, intrigue, storylines. Joseph Anderson, a kid that won the 110-meter hurdles in high school, the long jump, the triple jump. Oh, yeah, he's a defensive lineman. I mean, just ridiculous athleticism. Devin Kennedy, his dad's just Jimmy Kennedy, a guy that hasn't been playing football very long. Drew Campbell, you might know his brother, Jack Campbell, playing now in his rookie season with the Detroit Lions. And then Chemeki, I love this guy's upside. He had some offers down there in Texas and turned them down. You talk about four impactful storyline prospects. This defensive line class, again, knocked it out of the park.
Yeah, this is both the line classes just jump out at me for their potential. And boy, this D-line class is just really good. I am just super intrigued with Anderson and Kennedy. The NFL bloodlines too. You mentioned Jimmy Kennedy, but Anderson's dad also an former NFL player, Benny Anderson. So and both of them just long-limbed, athletic, put 40 pounds on them and look out. They'll be just as quick, but they'll have that extra weight on them and just be dynamite, I think. Getting to the passer and they both kind of remind me of like a Chauncey Golston. When Chauncey came in, he was just sort of skinny and long-limbed, and we've seen how he turned out. Terrific player for Iowa, very good last couple of years in a Hawkeye uniform, playing still in the NFL. So, and then Drew Campbell. I don't want to tag. Well, I don't know if it'd be as good as Jack or not. It's hard to be as good as Jack Campbell. I mean, one of the best linebackers in Iowa football history. So, but Drew's his own man, and he's a hard-nosed, tough guy, just like Jack. So. And Chineke, I think he's probably destined for D tackle. I think that's what I kind of think. He's probably going to end up at D tackle, but you need a D tackle in this class probably. So, we end up seeing Drew Campbell put on weight and become a D tackle, like Logan Lee. So we may see something like that, kind of the same size as Logan. About 6'4", 6'5", and. Logan was probably about 230, 240 when he came in. So could be something similar there. We'll see.
Derek Weisskopf, Cam Buffington, Preston Reese. I look at all three of these guys. All right. They're just, athletic linebackers. I can't tell the difference between them. Tell me, is there, of those guys, one that maybe has a chance to play earlier? Is there a guy that you look like out of that linebacker group?
Boy, that's like trying to pick your favorite kid.
Right.
I think all of them are really good. I would probably lean towards Derek, maybe. The thing I wonder about with Buffington, I think Buffington is going to be really good, but he's going to be making that adjustment not only from smaller football, but also he's playing 8-man, so he's got to make that adjustment. So I just wonder if that's going to maybe take a little bit longer for him to kind of sort through. But all three of those guys, you could see all three of them playing on special teams early in their career and being just dynamite. I mean, but that linebacker room is just stacked with guys. I mean, I think about, I love Ben Keeter, and he didn't even see the field this year. He was hurt, I think, a little bit this year, but that's a guy that you expect to have a big impact, unless he just decides to go, pull a Brody Brecht and go full wrestling here pretty soon. We'll see what happens if he participates this year. But I like this linebacker class a lot, and in-state kids that just, those guys play with a little bit of, as Hayden would call it, the extra heartbeat kind of thing for those guys as well.
Finally, defensive back, Rashad Godfrey. One of the guys took a little longer out of the group to get his commitment, but they eventually did, a safety prospect. And then Jalen Watson, bloodlines, Uncle Fred Russell, so you get excited about that. And cornerback, with the likelihood of Cooper DeJean departing, and we'll see about Jamari Harris. I mean, there's some holes there. TJ Hall was banged up all season long. I thought we saw some good things overall, but they need cornerbacks, and Watson looks to be a guy that could help out there.
Yeah, he's my guy on the defensive side as the most likely to play early, just because of two things. One, scarcity of players, corners. They may, try and get in the portal if they have any space to maybe get a corner to come in. I think they'd love to do that, but if not, Jalen Watson might be the guy. Super athletic kid and just really dynamic. So maybe some Micah Hyde qualities to him. Just in terms of ball skills and things like that you look for, and obviously it's bloodlines. Fred Russell's uncle is his uncle, so that's just you love that. But I think he's probably. And here's the other thing: Phil has never been shy about playing cornerbacks early. Just hasn't. He's been. That's been one of the staples of Phil Parker's tenure. Is I'll play early at corner. That's one spot I'll play. Safeties, probably not, but right. Corners, yeah, I'll throw you out there. That goes back to the Sean Prater days and maybe even earlier. Benny Sapp got in there as a true freshman too. And Godfrey, they'll have some time for him to develop, but I think he's probably a strong safety. He can, learn from Xavier Wampa. Maybe if Castro's back, can help him out and move him along. But another talented kid.
Good stuff. A good recruiting class, as you mentioned, on 3 right now, 28th in the country. Very good. Top half of the Big Ten, kind of what you'd expect and hope for from an Iowa football class. We'll get you out on this, Tom. And I know a busy day for you. A couple days back, you heard from Kirk. Anything from you on the OC search? I mean, you hear the 3 names. He said he's talked to 3 guys. I think it doesn't take a rocket scientist to figure out Joe Philbin, Paul Chryst, Andy Ludwig, who's been the apple of my eye for the last half decade. That one may be off the table. And then one secret guy that he hadn't talked to.
The mystery candidate. Mystery candidate.
How about this? I give you this option. Philbin, Chryst, or mystery option. We don't know who it is. Who would you take as the OC?
That's what I did this the other day on our podcast. And I said door number 1, door number 2, or door number 3. Which one are you picking?
Yeah.
It's like, let's make a deal.
What Dazzo take?
I think he took mystery.
Yeah. I don't think he's alone either.
I did. I was on with Chad Leistico the other day, last week, and I said, FanDuel, I think that's your sponsor here. Yeah. But, if you put up odds, I would say Paul Chryst is probably plus 125. I would say Joe Philbin's probably plus 300, but I think mystery candidate's probably plus 200.
Yeah.
A chance. I think Philbin is probably 3rd on the list. I do. But I think he'd probably hire Paul Chryst and feel comfortable. I think but I think maybe this mystery guy might be a little bit somebody intriguing. I guess maybe that's kind of got him thinking. It's not going to be. I don't know that it'll be like maybe it's somebody out of his comfort zone.
Mm-hmm.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And I think that's good because the other two guys are clearly in the Kirk Ferentz wheelhouse. They're just, if you're central casting for a Kirk Ferentz offensive coordinator is Paul Chryst. I mean, he's just, and I think Paul would be good. The thing I think is important is that the person be a quarterback coach.
Oh yeah.
I think they need it's the most important position on the football field, bar none. It is. And they really haven't had Bud Meyer's been coaching them, but I want an experienced, good quarterback coach at Iowa. I think that's just super important for them moving forward. And Paul Chryst would check that box. He was a very good quarterback coach at Wisconsin. They're not superstars there, but I mean, he coached some really good quarterbacks there and developed them. And some of those guys ended up in the NFL, maybe backups and stuff, but still, I think it's important. That's one thing that Philbin doesn't box that he doesn't check. And I would think he'd have to hire a quarterback coach. And then that's why I wonder if the mystery guy is somebody who's got a quarterback background and maybe can develop. And because I just think it's vital. It's just vital.
Oh, that's really good information. And yes, intriguing about the potential extra candidate, a little bit more outside the box, if you will. And the way that you put those odds there, a decent chance at minimum, which gets me excited and gives us content to talk about. You on the message boards over at HawkeyeReport.com and me here on Locked On Hawkeyes. Tom, really appreciate it. No, this is a crazy day for you. Thanks for giving us a little bit of time. And we'll be doing this again. I really enjoyed this. We'll try this again here down the road, and we can yell Iowa basketball at each other for a while.
Hey, that would be awesome. Anytime you need me, Trent, I'm here for you. You know that.
Absolutely. That's Tom Kakert, HawkeyeReport.com. We continue a few news and notes here on the Locked On Hawkeyes podcast. We talk basketball. Hoops coming up this evening as the basketball team prepares for UMBC on the men's side. Women in action tomorrow, plus some disappointing news from the ranks of wrestling. Nelson Brands, his collegiate career has come to an end. We'll do that as we continue Locked On Hawkeyes. Today's episode is brought to you by LinkedIn Jobs. When you're hiring for your small business, you want to have as many top-tier candidates as possible to interview. That's why you have to check out LinkedIn Jobs. LinkedIn Jobs has the tools to help you find the right professionals for your team faster and for free. I have my own small business. It is something where finding candidates for jobs, it can be incredibly difficult. It can be tedious. LinkedIn Jobs makes it incredibly easy to find the right people and making the hiring process incredibly simple. LinkedIn isn't just another job board. LinkedIn has a vast network of more than 1 billion professionals, which makes it the best place to hire. Hiring is easy when you have that many quality candidates. So easy, in fact, 86% of small businesses get a qualified candidate within 24 hours. With the feature right now, they have this. LinkedIn has knocked it out of a park. You can help you get your job description written and make the process as easy and as simple and as quick as possible. Time is money with your small business. Post your job for free at linkedin.com/lockedoncollege. Once again, that's linkedin.com/lockedoncollege to post your job for free. Terms and conditions apply. Trent Condon back with you one final time on the Locked On Hawkeyes podcast. Hoops tonight. It is the men's team as they take on UMBC. Yeah, University of Maryland, Baltimore County. You remember them beating number 1 seed Virginia, what, a half decade back in the NCAA tournament. Not the case anymore. Iowa, big favorite currently at FanDuel. The Hawkeyes favored by 26.5. Yeah, that's a big number there. But Iowa, against these bad teams, it's gone pretty well. And I anticipate the same kind of thing. We will have an instant reaction podcast coming up for you, though, into your feed tomorrow after that one. Looking forward to that. We'll talk, give some more news and notes on the recruiting side of things. Finally, disappointing news as it pertains to Iowa athletics and the wrestling program, as Nelson Brand's career has come to an end. He posted last night on Instagram and Twitter that his appeal was denied by the NCAA, and with it, his career is over. You look at this big picture, and this is not to say that they did anything, terribly. We're not talking about anything deplorable. We're talking about guys that bet on sports. Yes, it's a no-no in the NCAA. There's a lot of things that are no-nos in the NCAA. There are many things that you can't do, and you don't see your collegiate career come to a close because of it. From Noah Shannon, Nelson Brands, some guys with the baseball program that have just walked away from the sport. This has been devastating at an individual level for these programs. Nelson Brands, a guy that got to All-American status a year ago, looked to be making his way up the rung going into his final season of eligibility, and that's not going to be the case. It's obviously going to impact Iowa as they race to, still likely finish behind Penn State in the national championship race, but potentially be a team that could be a trophy team and finish in the top 3, and at minimum do that as they reload and rebuild that wrestling program. But just for the individual, you feel terrible for him. A guy that made a mistake, no doubt, made something that he regrets, of course. But we're talking about something that is such a way of life for so many people in college, outside of college, me on an everyday basis. I just feel bad for him. He made a mistake. Should it cost you your career? I don't think so. Unfortunately, the NCAA does not see it the same way. Back with you tomorrow, a little basketball talk as we will recap what we saw tonight from the Hawkeye men's team on the hardwood and preview Iowa on the women's side as they face off in their matchup against Loyola on the women's side of things. Plus more football talk, and we continue to see maybe we can get a name on that mystery third candidate that Tom Kakert was telling us about. Thanks to Tom Kakert for joining us. Thanks to you for hanging out with us here today. This is the Locked On Hawkeyes podcast. We'll talk to you again tomorrow. Go Hawks.